This is episode number 436 of the Health and Fitness Podcast, brought to you by InnerFight, in association with our good friends Smith Street Paleo, feeding you all that paleo goodness. If you haven't checked them out, please go and check them out. And if you live in the UAE, you definitely need to hop on a meal plan. This show is absolutely banging. Brian Keane Fitness, Brian Keane, all the way from Ireland, joined Andre and I on Skype, and we had an absolutely epic conversation. I'll let you guys enjoy it. There he is, Brian Keane Fitness. Mate, thank you so much for taking the time. You are joining us from Ireland, mate. Whereabouts in Ireland are you? What do you do? Give us your elevator pitch.
So I am on the west coast of Ireland. I live in a farmland in the west coast of Ireland. I'm overlooking a valley at the minute. There's no houses around me. There's nothing around me for a couple of miles. And again, background is in fitness. Played sport all my life. GA player, which is the Irish national sport, like a mixture between basketball, American football, and rugby. Wow. Came up playing fitness going to the gym to improve for that, and have been doing it for the last 17, 18 years. So that's just kind of a elevator pitch in my background.
Wow, mate. Talk to us about early days. Because I think this is something that we always find super interesting with our guests. How do they, sport has been a massive part of a lot of our guests' lives. What was sport to you growing up? How did you get into sport growing up, and what did it mean to you?
So we had a really sporty family. My dad played a very, very high level of football, which is the sport I played. My mum was an All-Ireland medal. Dad is an All-Ireland medal in that sport. Mum was an All-Ireland medal in basketball. So we're a sporty family. So I had a football in my hand from the age of 5. Right. So I've been playing for so long, and the fitness, I'm fortunate in that sense that I have a good background and baseline in fitness. Even when I joined the gym and started lifting weights, I had been playing sport all my life, so I took to it pretty quickly. And it's something that I loved from day one. I loved being able to push myself physically. And again, it's one of those things that how you do anything is how you do everything. And what you learn playing a sport translated into all areas of my life. It translated into the gym, and then it translated into my personal life, then it translated into my business life, and all the things that made me quote unquote successful, and whatever success is what it means for you. But for me, it was making the top teams, and our sport isn't professional. It's as close to professional as you can get. The people playing at the top level are doing it full time, more or less. But for me, it was playing at that level and playing with those players. So again, just to kind of give you a background on it, that's where I came from. Nice. And again, I've had ups and downs and started lifting weights to kind of combat a lot of other security issues that I had in myself, trying to get bigger and stronger. I'm 5'8", so I couldn't grow up, so I'm like, I'll grow out. So apart from that's just kind of what brought me to it.
That's something that you did, though, isn't it? You did sort of, I'll call it, even though you're a man, you did a certain amount of figure modeling, didn't you? Talk to us about that.
I did. Glorified dog shows. Yeah, I did. I was a competitive bodybuilder.
Yeah.
So basically getting up on stage all oiled up and tan, it's as bad as it sounds.
For an Irishman, that is just epic.
Yeah, but you know what? It's funny because it's one of those things. I've been very fortunate in my fitness career to have done and tasted so many things. I went from playing sport into competitive bodybuilding, which led me into fitness modeling, which basically allowed me to travel the world for photo shoots. And I did very, very well in that space. I came 8th in the Worlds in Las Vegas in the World Fitness Model Championships. Wow. My mum and daughter watched that on TV. Wow. So I was very fortunate and did quite well in that space. But again, it's funny because it led me on to, and I know we both have this in common, Marathon des Sables that we both did. I'm sure I've heard you speak of it so many times. And again, you were a massive inspiration for getting me through that, and I'll talk more on that as we go along, because yourself and our mutual friend Tom Otten are two of the reasons that I fucking survived that. Can I swear? I can swear on the podcast. Can I swear on the podcast?
You want, mate. You can do exactly what you want.
Dude, there was one thing that really struck with me. That was that one quote you mentioned. How you do anything is how you do everything. I absolutely love that mindset, and it's also a quote that I heard recently, and I've really taken that to me. And I think that's such a good quote, because you can't really don't you think that whatever you do will determine the rest? You said you were good at sports, so that made you good at a lot of other things. Do you think that people are born with that, or is that something you can learn?
I think it's a choice, because everything that you do, and when you're choosing to see the world as how you do anything, as how you do everything, you tend to anchor the things that you're successful and the parts of your life that you are successful, and then just reframe it and rechannel it into other areas. For me, that's a choice, because I'm not good at a lot of other things. I'm way worse at way more things than I am good at. But I was lucky that I was good at sport. I was naturally gifted in that area, but I wasn't naturally gifted in terms of study. I wasn't naturally gifted in terms of business. I wasn't naturally gifted in any of these other areas. But I was able to take the success principles from sport, the setting goals, the working up, the working hard, the getting up every morning and doing it when you don't want to do it. I was able to take those principles and rechannel it into other areas. And I think for anybody listening, that's learned. That's making a choice that whatever area of your life you're good at, that might be business for you. You might be incredible at making money, but you can't stay on track with your diet. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you anchor the part of your life that you are successful and rechannel it into another area, that's when you can really start to branch off and be successful in other areas of your life. That's what I've done personally anyways.
That's powerful, man.
Mate, talk us through. I know we're hopping around a bit here, but we've got so many different questions to ask you because it's super interested in your story. Talk us through your business, Brian Keane Fitness. What is it? How do you make money? You're a lot online. It says on the site that you're an online coach. Talk to us about that.
So right now, I started off as a one-to-one personal trainer. So that's my background is actually in teaching. I was a primary school teacher. So that's what I did for years. It was one of those. I thought this is the way the world had to be. You go to college, you get a degree, you get a 9-to-5 job, and you work Monday to Friday. You take your weekends off. You have 2.3 kids. You meet a girl, and then you retire and you die. And that was kind of what I was living that life until probably about 23. And I'm 30 now. And when I was 23, I had gone through the college system, university. I'd got my degree. I became a primary school teacher. And then I was like, okay, I kept telling myself, right, I'll be happy when I have a full-time job, or I'll be happy when I get qualified. And then I got qualified, and I said, no, I'll be happy when I have a full-time job. And then I got a full-time job, and I was like, no, I'll be happy after I get my first year of teaching done. And then I did my first year of teaching. I'm like, fuck. I still feel the same. Right. And it was one of those that I'm like, this isn't what I was meant to do. I was like, this isn't my life path. And again, I loved teaching. I loved the kids I was working with. I worked with year 5 for 2 years, year 3, and the younger kids for a year. So I was working with 10 and 11-year-olds. So they were amazing. But it wasn't what I was jumping out of bed to do every morning. I knew every Friday it was going to be the weekend, and I know it's different in Dubai. But in terms of the relative weekend, it's Friday and Saturday fee, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I knew it was going to be on a Thursday, for example. I knew it was going to be the weekend, and then I knew I was going back to work on the Sunday or Monday. And it basically led me into asking myself the question, what would I do for free? And it was fitness. Fitness was always I came back to. I kept that. Even when I was teaching, I would go to the gym after school. I would play sport. I was playing soccer when I was in the UK. And it was one of those, what would I do for free? And when I decided that's, again, it was the decision I made, I was like, okay, I'm going to go on and become a personal trainer. So for 2 years, I worked as both. I worked as a primary school teacher during the day, and I used to work as a personal trainer at nighttime. I did this for 2 years.
That's hustle, man.
And it worked. I was lucky in the sense that asking yourself that question, what would you do for free, actually ended up transpiring to was able to keep me going for those 2 years, because teaching used to tire me, but personal training never did, because it was something I would have done for free, and I was lucky that I got paid for it.
Mate, can I jump in there? Why did you like it so much? Why is it something that you would have done for free?
I suppose what I loved so much about it, well, the reason I loved teaching so much, and I suppose what you've done in your past has led you to this moment. I still teach because I do podcasts, I do videos, I do online courses. I create a lot of things for people, some free, some paid. And you're still teaching. You're just teaching fitness. And I was allowed to take that skill set that I had for teaching literacy or numeracy and channel it into the area that I was most passionate about. And as a personal trainer, you're physically seeing people transform in front of your eyes. Yeah. And it's so tangible. And when you see that person send you a text that they're like, oh my God, I talked to that girl that I've been obsessed about for the last 3 months and I didn't have the nerve to talk to her, that's down to psychological transformation through physical training that they've done in the gym. And I remember I got a photo from a girl once that she was a really, really overweight girl. Like she actually had been sent to me by a doctor because she was on the borderline of becoming type 2 diabetes. And she sent me a photo after 9 months of training of her on a plane. And she was like, this is the first time ever that I've fitted into a normal plane seat. The photo went viral. Her post went viral.
Wow.
And I was like, there's no money in the world that could pay for that feeling. And that's why I loved personal training, because that was happening regularly.
Wow.
Because I had so much interest in the area. I had a lot of knowledge on nutrition, a lot of knowledge on training, and a lot of knowledge on psychology of people and how they think, because I'd done a lot on myself. And that's why I loved it so much. So that's basically how I made the transition over. And then started making more money as a trainer than I did as a teacher. And then I quit. And went personal training 1-to-1 full time until I built up. After 6 months I moved from London back to Ireland and started full time. And after 6 months, I had a 6-month waiting list. So I brought on another trainer to try and clear that list. And this kept progressing. So I had to make the choice of, do I bring on more trainers or do I move online? And then I moved online and have been able to grow and scale. And as a result, I've impacted way more people because obviously you have that. We're in 2018. We have that luxury that everything's at a tip of a finger in front of you. You have your phone, you have your laptop, everything is there. Social media is there. And you can use it as a platform and use it to leverage a channel to help and serve people, and as a result you build a business off it. And I've been so fortunate over the last couple of years. It's been incredible, and I'm ridiculously grateful that I get to do what I do. I get to hear, look, I'm here sitting on a Monday morning chatting to you guys. I'm like, this is fucking awesome.
Mate, talk to us a little bit, because it when people say online training, online coaching, like, it's obviously very different. You had a massive backlog, but you're training people physically in a gym, one-on-one, and now you say you've taken your business online. Explain to us what that means.
So how I have is I've got 2 programs. One is a niche style program, so it's a GEA based program. So because of the sport that I played all my life, I had so many ties to it, in terms of a lot of the top players in the country are friends of mine. We're the similar age, or else over the last couple of years I've been working with them. So I've got one program that's focused purely on that. It's a combination body composition / strength and conditioning program. So my background, I have a strength and conditioning background, and obviously as a personal trainer, I have the knowledge, or again, perceived knowledge, to be able to help people improve their performance, get stronger faster, and change their composition. So I have a scaled program that is effectively tailored to each person's specific goals. So there's baseline nutritional strategies, baseline training programs, and supplement guides off the back of what somebody's trying to achieve. And then I've got my coach who works with them and does their check-ins each week, and then I check in, kind of oversee it. And then my general fitness program that's online is the exact same, but is tailored to people that are looking to change their body composition, lose body fat, build muscle, tone up, etc. So my programs are scaled in the sense that there's loads of variations of them. And as you fill out, say on my website, you fill out the questionnaire of, it starts to channel you and funnel you into the program that's going to be best for you. And then over the 8-week period, myself and my coach tailor it with you to make it fit your lifestyle, schedule, and goals more specifically. And then using the check-ins as accountability. And again, I have a couple of back systems built in there. I've got follow-on programs that if people give me a testimony or a before and after, they get that for free. Otherwise, they can pay for it. And it kind of works as social proof, bringing more people into the ecosystem. And then you've got, we're lucky, we've got 50, 100 people a month coming through those online programs, and that's effectively the online part of the business. There's other sections of it.
All right. Let's jump into the online business. Let's jump into some of the online programs a little bit. That sounds amazing, man. 1,500 clients every month. That's a huge amount of people.
50 to 100. 50 to 100.
I was like, whoa, 1,500. But anyways, 50 to 100 is still a lot of clients that you're able to influence every single month. I would like to jump into one of those programs you talked about for fat loss. I mean, we have a lot of people coming through the door every single day that are here for fat loss, and I bet we have a lot of listeners who are also interested in losing more weight or know somebody who are. what is your sort of prescription for fat loss in general, training wise? What kind of guidelines or structure do you build around the program for them to lose weight in general?
So the kind of the training principle, which is the easy part, because you don't have to do an awful lot training wise if you get your nutrition really dialed in. So the training aspect is, for anyone looking to lose body fat, is normally a focus of resistance style training. So some form of resistance work, either through weight training or their body weight, where they're basically tearing down fibers so they're going to get an elevation in metabolism. And there's also a combination of a high intensity element, so similar to what you do at InnerFight, a high intensity element that is going to increase the amount of calories you burn during each session. But the training is such a small part of the day. If you're training for an hour a day, that's 1/24 of your day. So the nutrition is a huge element. So that's where we put a massive focus. And how we do it, and what works very well in our fat loss programs, is we have a kind of a baseline program. So for example, if you're a male that is 90 kilos, a little bit overweight, trying to lose body fat, we're probably going to start you in and around the 2,500 calorie mark, making sure you're getting lots of nutrient dense foods that gives your body energy, spacing your meals out to keep your blood sugar level stable. And then as the weeks go on, we start tailoring in things like different recipes that you want to include, different food preferences. Like the philosophy that I have, and that I've been very fortunate to kind of give on to people that are working under me, is the best nutritional strategy is one that fits into your lifestyle and schedule, that's in alignment with your goals, and is one that you can stick to in the long term. Because you can give anybody, and you know this at InnerFight, I've seen how you guys work, like you can give anybody a diet for chicken and broccoli for 8 weeks and they'll lose weight and they'll lose fat, but they're not going to keep it off, they're not going to stick to it. So that's kind of similar to yourselves. I put that emphasis on, making sure we get the nutrition dialed in and making sure that it's sustainable long term. Like my target, we don't hit this every time, but the target at the start of the 8 weeks before anyone goes on to phase 2, which is the maintenance or a continuation of the phase 1 program, what we aim to do is after 8 weeks, I want to try and reframe a diet they're following to just the way they eat. Because when you can make the food choices automatic and they know what foods they enjoy, they know what healthy foods, quote unquote healthy foods, support their energy, and they make this positive association with eating a certain way, feeding a certain way, and getting the body composition results, they tend to stick to it long term because progress is addictive. And if you can get those results after 6 to 8 weeks, it tends to be a lot easier to sustain it long term.
Very good. What I really like is that I asked you about the training program, and mostly you talked about the nutrition, because that is the most important part. But nobody understands it because it's a lot easier just to show up for 1 hour and kind of hope for the best. But what you're saying is that it's the other 23 hours of the day. It's how you fuel yourself. It's how you sleep. And it's how you move throughout the day that's actually going to make the biggest difference. So whatever you do in that 1 hour of working out is not the main focus, or that shouldn't be the main focus for progress.
100%. Like you can train, if I had the choice between giving somebody a really super basic training program but nailing their nutrition, or letting them eat whatever they want, McDonald's 5 times a day, and training like the best training program at all time, like go sign up for InnerFight and you train them every day, they're going to kill you and smash your workouts, but you're eating McDonald's all day, like every day of the week, the person on the nutrition plan, and you've seen this time and time again, that person is going to transform faster.
Absolutely. Mate, massive points. I want to jump back to what you were saying, how you're aiming to impact people. One tool that you've started using not so long ago is a podcast similar to what we're on now. We've been using it for a while as well. Talk to us about why you went into podcasting and what your podcast is, why people should listen, all about that, and let's try and send a lot of our listeners to your show. That's the sort of blind sell here.
I love it. Nice. The podcast is the favorite thing that I'm doing at the minute. And I'm on every platform. I'm using everything, and I basically work off everything. But the podcast is my favorite platform. The reason I started it was, one, I wanted a little bit of a land grab in the space, because I had seen podcasting starting to climb, but it hadn't peaked, and I still don't think it's fully peaked. Right. But also what was happening was I was releasing a lot of videos, and a lot of 1-minute videos on Instagram. And a lot of context was being lost when I would answer a question on nutrition or training or even a mindset or something along those lines of goal setting. And when you only have 60 seconds to get your point across on an Instagram video, for example, you can lose the point, or people can lose the context completely.
Absolutely.
What a podcast allowed me to do was expand and flesh out on a point and offer the different context of why it's applicable in certain areas. So,
right.
If you ask me a question on the keto diet, I can expand and tell you why, it can work amazingly well for an endurance athlete. You might feel amazing on it. You're switching from, glucose to using ketones. But if you're an athlete playing a top-level sport, it's mainly glycotic-based, you may not want to do that. Or you may not want to do it for fat loss because it's easier. There's easier ways, in my opinion, to lose body fat than going to a keto diet, which can be very, very restricted for people. Yeah. So I could give context to why it worked for certain people and why it didn't. So that's kind of what I started doing the podcast. And again, it exploded way faster than I thought. We're at that 80, 90,000 downloads a month mark, and it's growing. And I've been so lucky. It's one of those that right time, right place, and providing value is what I try and do. Again, similar to yourselves, you're trying to have an impact and serve and help as many people as you can. And my entire podcast is based off that. It's either Q&A format or a topic format, or it's a guest. Like Marcus, you were on mine, and that episode was on fire. Like we gave a call to action for people to send their Mount Everest, whatever challenge or goal that they were trying to achieve. And people were responding. They're like, Marcus is incredible. I'm like, I know. So it was awesome. And like, it's one of those things that even Marcus, the day we recorded, I'm like, I can't believe this is my job. That I get to sit here and chat to you and record this conversation. It's the exact same feeling right now.
Yeah,
and
it's good.
So that's kind of how the podcast got started. And it's something that I've been doubling down on just because of the amount of growth and feedback from it.
Quick fire questions on the podcast. Don't think too long. Who's the best guest you've had on?
Oh, Marcus.
Good. Who's the worst? You've got to say something.
Oh, I haven't had any bad guests. I can't say there's been one interview with them. I'm like,
Save answer.
What's the topic that you've enjoyed talking about the most on your show?
The mindset side of things. So one of my favorite episodes is advice I'd offer my 18-year-old self. It's actually one of my most downloaded episodes as well. And the 5 stories you're telling yourself that might be holding you back. They're the things that I like. I'm terrible at rapid fire, by the way.
Which number shows are those? I would love to listen to those.
Yeah,
and I bet that
we'll
many of our
in
guests
the show notes. Yeah,
they are. I think 81, and I want to say 123 or 124 for the 5 stories. That's a fairly recent one.
Yeah,
that's some good ones, man.
We'll stick those in the show notes for us, mate. One last thing on the podcast before we move to the next thing that I'm going to ask you about, mate, is you do a lot of Q&A. Over the last sort of 6 months, what are people asking the most about? Like, because I'm sure you funnel all the answers, but all the questions, but you still you have to go through all the questions. What do people want answers to in 2018, Brian?
It's really weird because it's probably not what you'd expect for a fitness podcast. So I generally, when I think fitness podcast, you think, how do you build muscle? How do you lose body fat? How do you improve performance? That's generally not the majority of questions that come in. What I get a lot of on mine is, how do I deal with, the negativity of people in my workplace? They're really throwing me off. How do I, work with my fiance who's not supporting me in my fitness journey? It's these things outside of the general, get into a calorie deficit, eat protein, lift weights. It's the stuff outside of that I get quite a lot of. I think a lot of it's off the back of my book, The Fitness Mindset, that because that whole second half of the book is all mindset based, and then a lot of people are coming into the podcast via that, and they're the majority of questions that I get back. So even though I do get should I do keto to lose body fat, or what rep range should I be in to build more muscle, it's not the 80%. The 80% is mindset-based stuff that generally most people in their lives can kind of relate to.
And why do you think that is? Do you think that's because, the mindset thing is a bit of a taboo? Like, it's not something people talk too much about because it's I think some people can think, oh, man, I'm just weak, or it makes me weak to talk about it. Do you think that's why they sort of reach out to you anonymous like that and and kind of ask you for the things outside of the fitness, which affects the fitness.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is, like, my podcast is definitely the platform that I'm most vulnerable on. Like, when I'm recording a podcast, it's just me and my microphone, and I'm talking, I'm pressing record and speaking. I do all my podcasts in one take, and I'm speaking at the mic. And when I'm talking about kind of my own, vulnerabilities or insecurities or things that I'm worried about, it tends to allow people or build that trust that people are like, okay, well, he's obviously gone through that and came out the other side. I wonder, can he help me with my problem?
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of it comes from.
Yeah.
If I'm honest, if I had to give an answer on that, I would think it's from that.
Yeah, I think, mate, I think that's true as well. And I've also listened to a lot of your shows, mate, and I think the way that you're just so open about stuff that, like you said, that you've been through, and then just saying, like, guys, I've experienced this is how I dealt with it. Hopefully this will help you. I think that you've got an incredible knack of just making it so relatable to people, mate. So I think that's probably why you're getting a lot of stuff in that direction as well.
Yeah, I hopefully, like, it's one of those that the podcast, it's same as everything, similar, Marcus, to what you do with the Q&As and everything you're doing with InnerFight. You're just trying to help people and provide value and serve. And when you do that, all the other things come. I'm impact over income, but a weird thing happens when you have impact. Your income just rises ridiculously. And then it just feeds back into one another.
Mate, you mentioned something there, your book. I want to move into that. You wrote a book, The Fitness Mindset. Talk to us about the book. Why did you write it? What's it all about?
So I wrote The Fitness Mindset, and a lot of it was to kind of, they always say to read the book or write the book that you want to read, or fill the gap that's missing.
Yeah.
And that's effectively how I wrote The Fitness Mindset. So it's broken into two sections. The first section is all fitness, training, nutrition, sleep, alcohol, hydration, all these things that you need to understand to get in shape. And then the second half of the book is all the mindset stuff that allows you to keep in shape, to stay in shape and do it long term, creating the right habits, setting a why, having the right targets, not letting the negative emotions or negative people or situations stop you or hold you back. All of these things that tend to, what was happening, to take a step back, what was happening to a lot of my clients when I was working one-to-one as a trainer and then online, was people, for the large part that I was working with and the demographic I was working with, they knew what they had to do to get in shape. They knew that they had to eat better food. They knew that they had to do harder training and do some cardio, but they still didn't do it. Or they could do it for 6 weeks and then they fell off. So I found that I had to kind of come at it from nearly a psychological point of view or a mindset side of view and figure out what was holding people back and why they couldn't sustain it long term. So I wrote the book to deal with that, to serve that person that had an idea of how to get in shape but still couldn't keep it or couldn't sustain it long term. And I was so lucky. That book, like, I'm not super emotional, but I remember the book within 24 hours on Amazon went to the bestseller list and was one behind Harry Potter on the bestseller list on Amazon. Wow. And I was like, I went on a Facebook Live and I was like, Jesus Christ!
Why? Why? How does that happen?
I was mind blown. Like, Andre, it was one of those that I knew it would do well, because I spoke with this when I was chatting to Tom, and I think I spoke with this briefly when I was over with you in Dubai, that I wrote a lot of the book via social media. Right. So what I did for a lot of the sections of that book was I posted it on Facebook, which was really big at the time before the algorithm changed. And the stuff that got the most traction, the most likes, the most comments, the most shares, or the most messages from people, I took back, rewrote, and then put it into the book. Right. So I used it as feedback. So I knew it was going to help people when it got released. Just how many copies it sold, particularly within that first 24, 48 hours, like, that was mind blowing to me. I was speechless at the time. I am a little bit. And again, but I knew it was going to help because I had intentionally used the feedback of my audience, and I was lucky. I had, about 60,000 people on my Facebook at that time, a year and a half ago, maybe less, 50 to 60,000, and not as many on Instagram. But I had been using that as a platform to put out content. And it gave me direction with the book, because there was stuff in the book that I never knew would fly. I wrote a section on anxiety, because I've had a history, that type A personality, my own history with anxiety and constantly living in the future and worrying about all the things that could go wrong. I wrote a section on that, knowing nothing about it. Would it fly? I'm like, oh, people don't care about this, or people don't care that I went through this. And it got like thousands of shares and comments and likes. It was like one of my first viral posts.
Unreal.
And I rewrote it and put a section in the book on that. I would have never have known to put a section on anxiety in the book had I not done that.
Yeah, mate. It seems. Let's jump off the book a minute, because I think we've sort of come to a place where, like, your story of how you got into fitness, the podcast, the book, like, things have aligned, and you've kept saying that you're lucky, mate. But I don't believe in luck. I don't think it's luck. I think it's something deeper, and I think it's something You've said that you're giving people and you're trying to help people. What do you think? Is there more underlying? If luck wasn't a word, how would you explain how all of this has come together? Because, like, you can't strike gold that many times, mate. You clearly work damn hard. So talk us through maybe your work ethic and what really contributes to your success.
Yeah, I suppose, and that's really kind of you to say. I suppose if I didn't have luck as a word, persistent would be the one that would replace it. I overcame my fear of failure a while back, and I overcame comparing myself to other people or caring what the opinions of others had on me several years back, and that has allowed me to fail very fast and throw things against the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah.
And it comes from me, and again, if this resonates with people, I'm not sure, but when you're not letting other people's opinion of you dictate what you do and what you say and what you put out, it makes it very easy to fail fast. And then I just choose to look at failure as feedback. And when you can see what flies, when I was writing the book, for example, and I'll use that as context because I think it applies here, I had doubled the length of the book written. And I cut half of it out because I kept what was the best stuff and what flew, and I took everything else out. I've got a whole section on my laptop that's a whole other book that was just stuff that didn't fly as well. And that's persistence. That was getting up every day and writing, even though I fucking hate writing. I love talking. I love making videos, and that's not true. I do like writing, but I find writing difficult. Again, I know I'm a best-selling author, but a lot of writers will struggle with it, and it takes a lot of effort for me to get my message across, where when I can speak, I can do it in one go.
Yeah.
But that was just being persistent, getting up every morning. I get up every morning at 5 a.m. and I just fucking do the shit I don't want to do, or else I do my most creative tasks and I get it done. And when you do that every day and you compound that over time, like the reason I did Marathon des Sables, which is, again, I'm sure your listeners are familiar with, having came through it yourself, that 250 kilometer run through the Sahara. Like, I fucking hate running. I hate it. But that's why I loved doing it, because I had made the choice that, right, I'm going to do something. I'm not built to run. For those listening, like, I grew up, bodybuilding background, sport background. I'm 5'8", 85 kilos. A lot of muscle. I grew up on a farm, so I've got like a farmer thickness.
Yes, you do.
And like the complete opposite. To give you an idea, when I was in Morocco for Marathon des Sables, I was 84 kilos flying out there, and there was one other guy in my tent who was 84 kilos. I'm 5'8", he was 6'7".
Wow.
So that gives you a gauge on, like, just the demographic. So not really built to run, but a lot of it comes down to, how you do anything is how you do everything. Because I did the Marathon des Sables and did the runs. I was running 50 to 100 kilometers every week. Now, I would have trained completely different had I known going out there in the different types of terrain.
Yeah.
Because I was doing it on the treadmill, on the roads, out in the back of, the west of Ireland. But that translates into other areas. What makes you successful in one area makes you successful elsewhere. And a lot of it's just being persistent, just showing up whether you fucking want to or not.
Yeah.
Show up to that workout. Show up in front of the laptop to write. Show up in that relationship even though, your missus or your boyfriend's been at you and they're, you just don't want them to be around. Just fucking show up the best you can show up consistently day after day. And if you live a long enough life, you'll get what you deserve. To get what you want, you got to deserve what you want, and just fucking show up.
Mate, absolutely on fire. I love it, mate. And you actually hopped to my next question, or to our next question, which was talking about Marathon des Sables and the why. Give us a little bit more. I mean, we've got the why, but as an experience, how do you rate it, 1 to 10? Because I'm trying to get Andre
the Marathon
to do
des
it.
Sables is the best thing I've ever done in my life.
Really?
Bar none.
Really?
Oh man, like it was like you told me, like I can't remember, was it on air or off air when we were chatting on my podcast, and you're like, mate, just embrace it. Like you know, running through the desert at night time, there's nothing around. Because I found it so difficult physically. Like my body after the long day was just shutting down. Like that 86 kilometer on the long day took me nearly 24 hours.
Wow.
And my body, and I went straight through the night, you know, on your advice. I went straight through. Some people slept and took a few hours. I went straight through. And my body was broken.
Really?
And then having to get up the following day to run another fucking marathon. I was hobbling. I was crawling. But I love the metaphor for what it is in life. Like you knew what the target was. You woke up every morning and you had to get from start line to finish line, and it didn't matter whether you were tired, it didn't matter whether you were sore, it didn't matter whether your feet were mangled. My feet were destroyed. But you just put one foot in front of the other and you kept moving forward. Everything in life is like that. Your job, your relationship, your fitness, it doesn't matter how slowly you go. You just put one foot in front of the other and you keep moving forward. And I came back and I had to tell myself that over and over and over again in the desert. And I came back and you told me this. You were like, wait until you come back. Mate, I feel fucking unstoppable after coming back from Marathon des Sables. Like, it gives you that. It gives you that when you're so far outside your comfort zone that you don't know. You want to believe that you're going to get all the way to the inline, but there's so many things that can go wrong. There's so many things that could put you out. And you just go, fuck it, I'll control the controllables. I'll control everything that I can control. My food, my hydration, my feet. I'll control these things. And if I get bitten by a snake, I'll deal with it then. If there's a sandstorm, I'll deal with it then. You know, if, you know, something happens that, you know, there's a problem with the water at the checkpoint, I'll deal with it then. It's controlling the controllables, letting go of everything else, and then just putting one foot in front of the other. I loved it. I thought it was absolutely incredible.
That's a great
Brian,
wrap-up.
coming off such a big challenge, what is next in the pipeline? I mean, there's not much that's 250 kilometers through the desert. How much bigger can it get? And is there something bigger for you in the future?
Yeah, in the future, yes. A couple of things, because you come back from the desert and you're just like, Jesus, I could do anything. And now I've got my daughter's 3, so there's a lot of things that I'd love to do, but I won't do until she's older. Like I had a friend on my podcast recently that rode across the Atlantic. I would love to do that, but I would never do it until she was older and old enough that I could tell her what I was doing. Right. Just because of the dangers. Like my family is everything to me, and if something went wrong there, I wouldn't be able to deal with that or live with that because it's a choice. Where when my daughter's older and my family are grown up, or you know, at least old enough that you can tell them what you're doing, some of these things that are potentially putting your life at risk, I can put to the back burner for now. But there's something that I came back from Marathon des Sables and I'm like, fuck, what's next? I'm like, let's see where the real limits are, you know? And I'm trying to manifest it in other areas of my life now. I keep asking myself, I signed up for an Ironman, but it doesn't scare me. So I'm looking into other things right, I got to start attacking these things that are scaring me, because you come back from Marathon des Sables and your bar moves. The things that previously seemed either impossible or you had self-doubt about evaporate. They just disappear. That's no longer your thought process. Your thought process is, I can do that. You know, you hear this crazy shit that people are doing and you're like, I could do that. And that's what happens. And then now it's just a matter of setting a goal that I feel is unachievable, and then working back from it. So I don't know what that is yet, but it will be something that pushes me mentally, because I feel that's what I got from Marathon des Sables, and that's what I need to strive for in whatever I choose to do next.
I can't wait to hear what it is, mate. Mate, I want to take a step back. What on earth, a guy like you, so much energy, so much passion, so much drive, what do you do to relax?
I have an embarrassing amount of knowledge about Disney princesses. I play with my 3-year-old and watch all the Disney princess movies. My little girl Holly's obsessed with football, so that anytime I'm with her, I'm not Brian Keane Fitness, I'm not Brian, I'm not anything, I'm just dad.
Nice.
And that gives me a complete... The only analogy I can ever give when I'm playing with my daughter or hanging out with her and spending quality time with her, it's kind of like when you refresh a browser on a laptop. That's kind of what it makes me feel. Because my job, what I do, doesn't really tire me because I love what I do.
Yeah.
But that gives me a complete refresh every single time.
Nice.
And that helps me unwind. It helps me relax. And I always feel so much better off the back of it. So, yeah, that's exactly what I do to relax for me.
Awesome, mate.
Who do you look up to? A guy with such a drive and many accomplishments. Who has been growing up and right now, who do you look up to and who inspires you?
For different reasons. Well, obviously, my mum has been a huge factor in my life. My mum has always given me permission and my sister permission. My sister's the smartest person I know. She's a PhD lecturer in Northumbria University. And she's always given us permission and told us since I can remember, 5 or 6, she would always tell us, if you're happy cleaning the street, go clean the street. And it was actually her that signed me up to my first fitness instructor course. Okay. And so she's been a huge part. Outside of that, I don't get inspired in the traditional sense by this one person or this other person. I get fucking lit up from people that are setting targets for themselves and trying to smash through their limitations. I remember after I met Marcus for coffee in Dubai and he was talking about the cycle he was doing and about Marathon des Sables, I was fucking lit up after that. Our mutual friend Tom Otten, he just came off the back of a 100-kilometer run, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, he was lit up having came third in that race. Anybody that is pushing limits on whatever their relative limit is, that lights me up. And I get the same from somebody that is, 5 stone overweight and is just walking on a treadmill trying to become a better version of themselves, because they're clearly pushing through that psychological issues that they have. They're clearly working through their own relative limitations. That lights me up. So I'm very lucky that I get it. That's why I'm able to walk around so inspired a lot of the time, is because I'm getting it from everywhere. And anybody that does that challenges themselves, that pushes their business to the next level, that makes themselves show up to be a better husband or wife or father, or pushes their physical limits, that fucking lights me up.
Love it. Absolutely love it, mate. We can tell. Mate, we've got 2 more questions. We won't take too much more of your time. I'm going to hit you with the first one, and Andre will close it out. What does success mean for you?
Success for me, and again, I'm so big on putting that question to anybody I ever come in contact with, because if you're working off the wrong metric for success, you're going to start climbing a ladder against a wall when you're up against the wrong wall. And my success metric, so for me, success for me has always been, over the last few years, never having to worry about paying bills. There was a time, I've spoken on my podcast regularly, there was a time I went broke 3 times trying to get my personal training business off the ground. It's why I had to teach for 2 years, because it took me 3 attempts. So I've been broke. I had to take out money the last time to pay my rent, because I had to go down the back of my couch when I was living in London to get money for the bus, to try and put coins together to go down to the bank so I could take out a loan to pay my rent that month.
Unbelievable.
And that my version of success now is never having to worry about paying bills, never having to worry about paying my mortgage, never having to worry about that. My version of success is being able to take hours off during the day and spend it with my daughter, or bring my mum for coffee. My mum works for me, and so she has no choice. I'm like, we're going for lunch. She's like, okay, cool. So that was
now you're fired.
That's
don't
it. You're fired if you
mate,
don't come.
please.
But that was one of my big things, because mum hated her job. And was miserable in it, and I was like, okay, quit your job, I'll hire you. This was 2 years ago, and I was like, quit your job, I'll hire you can work for me. And now she works for me, but she doesn't do that like she does bits and pieces and jobs for me, but I get to see her every day now. That for me, that's what success means for me. It's not the zeros in the bank account, it's not the vanity metrics on Instagram, it's spending time with my mum, getting to bring her on because she doesn't like her job and she's done so much for me, and it's my small way of trying to give back to her. It's spending time with my daughter, and it's never having to worry about the silly scarcity mindset of paying bills, and just being able to help and provide and serve more people, impact over income. And again, that's what success means for me. And they're the kind of the most important areas of my life. So as long as I'm doing that every day, and that's my thought process, and I get to get out of bed every morning with that in mind, I tend to hit that nearly every day.
Absolutely.
Man, you've been sharing so many good things and quotes and lifestyle things people can use, but we have one thing that we always finish off all the podcasts with. If you have one piece of advice that you've learned or been given, what would that be?
Don't let other people's opinion become your reality.
Boom.
And I'll flesh that, because when you go through your whole life, and as someone that has lived that, and they always say your mess becomes your message, and as someone that went through a large part of my life letting other people's opinion dictate the direction and dictate the decisions that I made, you regret that. I live a very, very simple lifestyle now, and any decision I ever make, I live it off a 97-year-old rule. I ask myself, what would the 97-year-old me lying on my deathbed make of this situation right now? If it's something that's telling me, look, you're going to regret doing this at 97 years old, I don't do it. If it's something that says, look, you got to go all in on this right now, or you'd regret it when you're 97 years old on your deathbed, I go all in on it. And that comes down to not letting other people's opinion become your reality. So that's what I would be my take-home message.
Absolutely amazing, mate. I really appreciate you, Brian. We've not known each other for a long time, but every time we've connected, it's just been such a powerful session, and today has been absolutely no different, mate. So much great content in the show. I really, really thank you, mate, for taking the time to speak to us.
Agree.
Mate, thank you so much, lads. Thank you so much for having me on. This was awesome.
Legends, mate. We'll hook up everything there in the show notes, guys. If you want to follow Brian right away, I suggest you do. I suggest you hop over to his Instagram account at Brian_Keane_Fitness. Go and check out his website. I've put links in the show notes to the podcast if you use iTunes, to the podcast if you use Stitcher, and those 3 episodes, number 81, 123, 124. Anywhere else we should find you, Brian? Facebook, YouTube, you are everywhere.
Yeah, I'm on it all. Probably the podcast is my favorite thing, and Instagram. I'm spending an ungodly amount of time on Instagram at the minute, so probably those two.
Mate, we will stay tuned. I will keep listening to your show, and we're really looking forward to hearing what your next big challenge is and how things continue to develop and you impact people. Mate, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much again.
Cheers.